So we take a cruise down memory lane back into middle school. Remember that you were told you can't have improper fractions. The numerator can never be bigger than the denominator. And so you had to turn that into a mixed number. All right, well, high school has a similar sort of story. Our story is we don't like radicals in the denominator. So in the previous examples, we were able to take the square root of the denominator and everything worked out nice because the denominators happen to be perfect squares. What if they're not? In this particular case, what we're going to do is we're going to follow the same procedure we were following before. Square root of 28 over the square root of 12, right? Split them up into 2, and then let's consider their factors. 4 times 7 all over 4 times 3, giving us square root of 4 is 2, radical 7 all over 2 radical 3. And so at this point in the last examples we were done. But the problem is that we have this radical 3 in the denominator and we don't like that. So what we're going to do is multiply by what we call the conjugate in the top and the bottom. It's not going to change the value of our fraction. It's going to change how it looks. And essentially all we're doing is just taking a look at this radical and multiplying by it on top and bottom. And what happens is when I multiply radical 3 times radical 3, I'm going to get radical 9, or what I'm going to create is a perfect square, which will reduce nicely to an integer, leaving us with no square root in the denominator. On the top, we're going to multiply because it's okay to multiply these two because they're both square roots. We're not looking for anything magical to happen in the numerator. If it does, great. It's the denominator that has my attention. So 2 times radical 7 times 3 is 21 all over 2 times radical 9, which leaves us with 2 radical 21, because there's no perfect square factors of 21, all over, this turns into 3, and 2 times 3 is 6. Before we walk away too quickly, I know that we don't have a irrational number in the denominator, but we do have 2 over 6. If you cover up that 21, 2 6 reduces to 1/3. So we're just going to say radical 21 all over 6, and we're going to take into consideration both versions of that. Okay, now comes the messy one. Wow. Addition to the denominator. Not a good sign when we see it. That's okay. A little foiling, a little bit of this conjugate business, and we'll get by. Again, what I notice here is, I really can't do much with the square root of 5, and I can't do much with the square root of 2. So there's this conjugate thing. And when we see the addition sign in the basement here, in that denominator, we're going to sort of just up the ante of the vocabulary, and what we're going to multiply on top and bottom, because of course we're going to use that method of changing the scale but not changing the value. We're going to multiply top and bottom by what we call the complex conjugate, okay? So it's going to be exactly what you see here for radical 5 on top and bottom. The only thing is we're going to change the operation. And what I've created now is a situation in which I can FOIL. And when I FOIL, we know that when we multiply a plus and a minus and everything else is the same, that the middle terms cancel each other out. And this is going to be really cool. Up at the top, I want to put my parentheses around so that I can distribute across carefully. And I'm going to multiply radical 2 times those two terms. And I'm going to put the constant in the front. So 4 radical 2 minus radical 2 times radical 5. All over on the bottom, 4 times 4 is 16. Outer terms, minus 4 radical 5. Inner terms, plus 4 radical 5. Notice these are going to cancel each other out quite nicely. Minus radical 5 times 5 is 25, which is just 5. These are going to cancel out. Really all I got to do is worry about this stuff up top. So I got 4 radical 2 minus 2 times 5 is radical 10. Not much I can do there. 16 minus 5 is going to leave us with 11. And there you have it. And you say to yourself, well, gee, Mr. Brecklin, that doesn't look much nicer than the stuff that we started with. Hey, I don't make the rules, I just teach the stuff.